Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another webinar with Streak. In this webinar, we are going to cover how to trade the budget with Streak. You can visit Streak by going to https www.streak.tech. The link is shown here. And you can also follow us on our Twitter handle at StreakTech. For any questions during this webinar or after this webinar, you can also write to us at support@StreakTech. Let's quickly get started. In this webinar, we are going to cover the following topics. We are first going to analyze the previous budget announcements using trend. What I mean by trend is using trend following strategies. The second analysis that we are going to do is using candlestick pattern. So I'll explain more in detail, but we are going to see what did the trend predict immediately after the budget, and did the trend continue for a short-term duration and a mid-term duration, both with trend following and candlestick pattern. Then the next topic we are going to cover is what information did we deduce, what did we understand using these techniques, how can we use this to trade. Then we will backtest strategies based on these methods on past budgets. Then we'll also backtest strategies based on sectoral specific announcements in different budgets, different years, different budgets. We'll showcase some of those sectoral strategies. Then we'll conclude the webinar. This is going to be an exciting webinar, so stay tuned and invite your friends. Before I move on, for those who need some help in understanding and getting started with Streak Tech, we have a request demo feature at the bottom right. Whenever you log in, once you see this option, you can enter your phone number and press on submit to request demo, and our team will help you out in understanding how to create strategies, how to use scanners and other things like that for wherever you need assistance. Now let's move on. So let's first analyze with trend how the previous budgets have performed using 50 EMA technique. This is a very standard approach in which people basically look at 50-day exponential moving average and check whether the trend is bullish or bearish. If the closing price is above a 50-day moving average, it is considered as a bullish trend, and if it is below, it basically is considered as a bearish trend. Let me quickly open this in chart. Okay, so I'll just plot. Let me just zoom in for those guys who need some help on that. So I have let me just open Nifty for ease and plot moving averages. So 50-day using close price exponential moving average. Okay, so the simplest analysis that we are going to keep in mind, what we are trying to do here is basically trying to explain different ways to analyze pre and post budget markets and how you can use that to understand and build your strategies. Okay, so whenever the price crosses above 50-day moving average, the trend is considered as bullish. You can see here, but you can also backtest and see even more of this on Streak. Okay, so even you see here the price crossed our 50-day moving average, now it continued. So there are many times where it crosses but then it comes back like here, but again for a few days there was a bullish trend. Having said all of that, the simplest way to understand a trend is basically by looking at its long or mid-range mid-term moving average. So that's why we are first analyzing pre-budget and post-budget looking at trend. So let's look at this. Historically, we have taken data from 2013 till 2019. So the budget was announced on Feb 2013 and the closing price that day was below 50-day moving average, 50-day exponential moving average. And the trend continued for the short term. That means after 1 month also the price fell after that budget announcement, and after 6 to 12 months also price was down. This is in 2013. 2014, obviously there are more macroeconomic things that are happening which cannot be accounted just by looking at the chart. But what we are trying to do is derive statistical significance. Probabilistic analysis is what we are doing to understand how can we devise strategies that work either on bullish side or on bearish side. Okay, so let's look at the next year. The next year budget was announced on 10th July 2014. In that, the closing price was higher than the 50-day moving average, the day closing of this day, and the short-term trend was bullish, and the long-term trend, which is 6 to 12 years in this scenario, intermediate trend, also was bullish. The next is on 28th Feb 2015. Same way here, the price closed above 50-day exponential moving average, but the short-term trend became bearish and the long-term trend became bearish as well. Now there is 2016, where again the day closing price was below 50-day moving exponential moving average, but the short-term trend of 1 month was bullish and the intermediate term also was bullish. Same analysis for 2017, bullish and bullish for both short-term and intermediate. 2018 again, Feb 2018, the price closed above, but the short-term trend was bearish, and the intermediate term trend was bullish. And this is 2019, last year's, where the price, even though closed above 50-day exponential moving average, the short-term trend was bearish, then it became bullish. Now, based on this table, what do we analyze? What can we deduce from this? So only 3 out of 7 times the trend during the budget day was continued for short-term trend. What that means is, here only 3 out of 7 times the short-term trend was continued. In 2014 it was continued, the day close was bullish, short-term trend was bullish. The 2013 also it was continued, the day trend was bearish, the short-term trend was bearish. And 2017 it was continued, where day close was bullish and the short-term trend also was bullish. Okay, 5 out of 7 times the trend during the budget day was discontinued, or day was continued for long-term or intermediate term trend. What that means is, the day trend was bearish, the short-term trend was bearish, the intermediate term was bearish, the day trend was bullish, the intermediate term was bullish. Only in 2015 and 2016 is where out of all these years, the short-term trend didn't reflect or the day trend didn't match intermediate term trend. So this, based on last 7 years data, shows that the trend during the budget day was unable to be correctly decided, decide the short-term trend. However, the intermediate trend was correctly decided in majority of cases. Now there's only 7 years, and I explained there is more macroeconomic data, but this helps us backtest and understand what kind of strategies to look for, and we'll cover that going forward. So moving on, analysis of trend during previous budget days using candlestick technique. Again, we are just looking at whether the day candle was the day on which the budget was announced, was it red or was it green. Same analysis here. This is next day close, so we are looking at the same day and the next day, and then the short-term trend and then the intermediate trend. Okay, the interim budgets have been excluded, keep that in mind. For the analysis, only major announcements are made during the full budget. Okay, so that is true for the previous table as well. So in 2013, the budget day candle was red, the next day was green, and the short-term trend was red and red. Same way you can read this table, you can pause the video and read this table. I'll just move on to the conclusions. Here again you see this day on which the budget was announced was bearish, the next day was bearish, but after that the short-term trend was bullish and bullish. And same way you can look at 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. So what can be deduced from the candlestick technique? Okay, so 4 out of 7 times the closing on the budget day, which is basically the day on which market reaction happened, was correctly able to determine the short-term trend. This happened during all the previous 3 years. This was true for 2017, 2018, 2019, last 3 years, same day close, next day close. If the trend is able to identify correctly the short-term trend. Okay. Only 2 out of 7 times the closing of the budget was able to correctly determine the intermediate trend, which is very important to keep in mind. We'll look at the conclusion and we'll understand why. 4 out of 7 times the closing of the next day of the budget was able to determine the short-term trend. This is happening during all the last 4 years. Basically what this means is 19, 18, 17, 16. The next day's trend is what is continued for the short term. Bullish, 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 bearish, 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 bearish. Only 2 out of 7 times the closing of the budget day was able to be correctly determined by was able to correctly determine the intermediate trend. So this is the same thing as the day same days the budget days closing candle, and the same is true for the next day's candle itself, next day candle's color, whether it is red or green. Okay, this data shows that during at least 3 last budget announcement, the closing of the day budget and the next day was correctly able to determine the short-term trend, but not significant during the intermediate trend. What that means is candlestick is able to better define what the short-term trend is, at least based on the 7 years of data which we have showcased here. You can go back and do analysis for a longer period. Now in exponential in trend technique, the EMA, the closing price in comparison with the exponential moving average is only able to do 5 out of 7, and candlestick is able to do 4 out of 7 for short-term trend. Now what can be concluded from this? It is very important to understand the whole table that we did to basically understand the following. Okay, the EMA method is more successful in determining intermediate trend. Intermediate is 6 months to 12 months trend, compared to candlestick technique, which is able to only determine short-term trend, which is 1 month trend, which is what is expected. Candlestick patterns or chart patterns are are more derivative of cyclic nature of markets, and hence are able to somewhat show the short-term trend, implies some short-term trend, whereas exponential moving averages are able to at least on the data that we are looking at, is able to analyze for 6 months to 12 months trend. Okay, so now that we have gone through this, let me take it a step forward. Let's understand what does all this imply to us as traders. Okay, that is what is important at the end of the day. As a trader, it is important to understand that the market should not remain stagnant. Okay, what is important for us is that market has some movement. Okay, and from the previous data we can deduce that the markets do pick up some kind of directional trend after the union budget announcement. It is not sideways, it is it can be upwards or downwards, some kind of trend. Now what this means is deploying a trend following and a momentum strategy after a budget can capture moves correctly. In the sense, you should try both bullish and bearish following strategies and backtest them on previous budgets to understand how are they capturing markets, and we'll cover some of them in the next slides. It is essential to understand proper entry and exit and using proper target and stop loss to mitigate loss from huge volatility, because as soon as the budget comes and as soon as there is more information in the market reacts, that creates a lot of volatility. So disciplined trading becomes more crucial here. Okay, now the probability analysis is what we did for the direction in the previous slide. Now we'll go ahead and we'll look at how to identify opportunities of this using streak platform. Okay, so let's look at simple opening range breakout strategies with pivot points during 2019 budget. Okay, so here there is this. Let me just create the strategy again and show it to you. So to create a strategy, all you have to do is go to streak.tech. So once you log in, this is Streak platform. Let's go and create a strategy. To create a strategy, you can go to create strategy here. Here you can discover some of already pre-created strategies with decent backtest results to understand how to build strategies and how to go about doing that. All these strategies are here for free. You can use it, paper trade, and understand. Now let's go to create strategy. Okay, so we are going to create a strategy with an ORB sell. We are going to create a bearish trend strategy because if you remember here on a trend base, because this is a price action kind of a chart based strategy, 2019 the candles were bearish. So we'll just create a strategy based on that. So let's go ahead and create the strategies. To create the strategy, you have to go and click here on create strategy. So I'll add the stocks. I'm just adding some stocks with good volume. I'll also add Nifty index as well, so that we can see how the index basically represent the markets better. So I'll just say Nifty 50 and I'll use Nifty 50 index and even Bank Nifty index. The time frame of the strategy is 5 minutes, so I'll just go put that. It is a short strategy, so I'll make a sell here. I'll put quantity 100. I'll say crosses below it should be, so I'll go ahead and modify that, but time frame is 15 minutes. It's low and done, and here it should be crosses below. So that cross below basically takes the trade only when or gives an alert only when the cross happens. Again, I have to add a pivot point. So I'll just say close. So close should be lower than the pivot point line to indicate that some kind of resistance is there for the price to go up. So I'll just add that. I'll make it pivot point. I'll keep it standard. I'll put a stop loss of 1%, target profit of 2%, maintaining a decent 1:2 win to loss ratio, 2:1 win to loss ratio. I'll just give it a name. Budget strategy 1, and I'll save and run backtest. Now I'm running the backtest for the budget period, the post budget period actually. The budget got announced on 5th July and the strategy is running from that date till 2nd October, which is 3 months period. As we can see, the strategy has performed phenomenally, outperforming the underlying asset itself. In this period, ICICI Bank fell actually by 2%, but the strategy generated a 13% returns. Keep in mind, this is without leverage. Here, the price is accounted as 1:1. Hero Motor Corp rose actually by 2%, but the strategy gave 17% returns by shorting it. Nifty index gave 2%, and Bank Nifty, it worked much better by giving nearly doubling the performance with regards to how much Nifty actually fell. So Bank Nifty fell 8% in this 3 months, but using this strategy, 16% returns were generated. So again, to keep in mind, we are basically showcasing that a price action candle based pattern, bearish pattern, was seen on the day of budget and next day, and using a bearish strategy following that, at least in this backtest, has outperformed the market returns by huge margin. Now let's backtest and visualize another impact from 2017. This is going to be a sectoral based announcement. In 2017, government focused a lot on infrastructure investment. So let's visualize the results of a momentum based strategy that both before and after the budget announcement. So sorry, in the previous one I didn't do before. We can also do before. So to do before, I'll just go 3 months back from the day of announcement. So let's say May 5th. So we can see how did this strategy perform before the budget. So quite decent, even though, but there was a lot of max drawdown. Even though ICICI rose 3%, shorting it generated 4.32%. After brokerage, it was 2%. So let's look at the next one, where sectoral impact. How does the budget has on a sector, and how can a strategy be used to understand, analyze, and trade those markets? Now keep in mind, these are very simple strategies. You can have a better, more complicated momentum or a moving average or a trend based strategy, trend following strategy, which might be using super trend or a PSAR indicator. You can check out the discover page for more ideas or more sort of samples on those things. But I'll just create a simple MACD based strategy here to this is a bullish strategy because the government focused on infrastructure investment, trying to help the markets move up, right? To support them. So let me go and create the strategy quickly. Let me create the strategy. I'll be adding LNT, which is LNT infra for infra budget. Also, I'll add the index because that will give us a good idea of how the infra index, which is a composite of major infra stocks, works. So as I said earlier, it's a bullish strategy. Okay, on Heikin-Ashi chart on 5 minutes. So let me just create entire conditions. So it uses MACD histogram. The strategy is very simple, a basic one. MACD histogram is higher than MACD histogram of previous candle. So I just have to say -1 in offset. Keep in mind, offset lets you access values of previous candle. I'll say add another condition, and I'll say an MACD itself is lower than 0. Let me just confirm here. Yes, MACD 1269 is lower than the number 0. So I'll just type number and I'll say 0. The exit in this scenario is basically based on super trend. So close crosses below. So close crosses below super trend. The parameters are custom. You can try and figure out a parameter that works for you. I'll enter a stop loss and target profit of stop loss of 1%, target profit 3%, good 3:1 win to loss ratio. I'll give it a name. So BU budget strategy. Okay. So I'll also change the chart pattern to Heikin-Ashi. To change that, you just have to click on advanced, and you can change to Heikin-Ashi and the trading type as CNC and RML. Even though this is a 5-minute strategy, we'll carry forward on the positions. Let's run backtest. So the backtest results are here. So as you can see, LNT has generated 7% and the index itself has generated 9%, which has outperformed the underlying itself. If you can see here, I have run the backtest from the day the budget was announced, 3 months post that. We can also, this is post budget. Okay, so post budget, post the infra announcement, the strategy has performed good relative to, let's say, how it would have performed before. So let's check that out as well. We'll go 3 months back. So we'll run it from December 2nd to Jan 2nd, or November 2nd. 3 months, 1 quarter before the budget announcement, and we'll see how the strategy performs. While the backtest is running, you can look at the strategy. As we can see, the strategy performed well because of budget announcement. Before that, it was not sort of doing anything significant, but as soon as because of the positive impact and the trend that got established by the budget itself, the strategy start to perform. I've changed the dates back, and I'm running the strategy after the budget impact. So the market move is happening because of the strategy itself. Uh, Sorry, because of the budget itself, and the strategy is just capturing it. Okay, so now that we have looked at infra budget in 2017, let's look at one more year back, 2016, when government focused on reviving the PSU banks. And let's visualize how those strategies performed, or how those momentum strategies were able to capture and perform before and after the budget announcement. So here we'll use another momentum strategy using Arun indicator and UBB. Very simple. To create the strategy, you just have to go and click on create. I'll add the same stocks. Here again, it's a bullish strategy. Keep in mind, we are following bullish or bearish strategies because of whatever the EMA trend at that year indicated, or the short-term trend of that year indicated. Okay, this is just to explain how you can understand and analyze the budget along with a strategy, and have strategies ready on both the directions to capitalize on any move that comes. So let's create this strategy. Here I'll be adding some of the banks. So let me add Canara Bank, SBIN. Let's add some small bank also, Syndicate Bank. The strategy is, as I showed you, intraday strategy, very simple bullish strategy based on Arun. Okay, I'll just put some quantity. Let me just turn off this assist so I can. So the Arun up is higher than Arun down. For those people who want to understand what Arun is, what these indicators are, you can just go to Kite chart, go to studies and type Arun. You will see Arun up and Arun down indicator. So this is the Arun up, Arun down indicator. All I'm trying to say is, if Arun is showing bullish or Arun up is higher than Arun down, and Bollinger Band close price crosses above the Bollinger Band, take a trade. So let me just add that close price crosses above upper Bollinger Band, so UBB. Default parameters. The stop loss and the target profit is very simple. Stop loss is 1%, target profit is 2%, a simple win to loss ratio. Now give it a name. So let's say budget trading strategy 3, and we'll run the backtest. So let the backtest run. I'm running the budget first for the post backtest budget period. Then we'll run the pre-budget period. So as we can see, the strategy does decently well. It is able to capture the price movement that has come after the budget for all the three banks with a good win to loss ratio compared to the number of trades that have been taken. Now let's quickly run on 1 quarter before the budget. So let's run it from 1st of December to the last of Feb, before the budget was announced, and see how this strategy performs. So we see that this strategy didn't perform much well prior to the budget, okay, but post the budget, because of the budget announcement itself, the bullish trend was created, which was captured decently by the strategy itself. So again, I'm running after the budget wala backtest again for you guys to see and understand what I'm trying to say. Now the budget is what has caused the trend and the drive to come in market. The strategy is simply just trying to understand that, capture that, and find opportunities in the market. Now, irrespective of whatever the budget can be, what is important for a trader, which we have discussed above before, is the market must not remain stagnant. And because of budget, the volatility will increase, the trend, different kind of trends for different kind of sectors will come, and we should have strategies, backtest them on different periods to understand how different budget scenarios has impacted them, and try to deploy and paper trade them before actually utilizing any money also, and understand how those strategies perform in live market. Okay, so now that we have covered 3 different strategies, the first one is, just a quick recap, the first one is price action based strategy, opening range breakout, simple budget. This was ran on post budget of July 2019. Then the next strategy we discussed was the simple momentum based strategy using MACD and super trend. This was run for infra investments from post budget after in first Feb 2017 year budget, and the next one was 2016 year budget. Like this, you can build strategies, test them on different budget scenarios, and utilize that in live market. Now again, to recap for those who have missed, if you guys have any questions on how to be able to create a strategy or a scanner, you can always find this request free demo option at the bottom and request a demo, or write to us at support@streak.tech. Now concluding, it is very important to analyze historical announcement to be able to trade any upcoming budget. This is very important, and a backtesting platform like Streak helps you backtest with ease without having to worry too much about coding, fetching data, those kind of things, to be able to easily analyze the impact of a particular kind of an indicator or a particular kind of a trading style like price action versus technical based trend following. How does that play with a specific kind of announcement in a sector, or with announcement with in general regards to budget, right? Budget plays a significant role in determining the sector's movement, not only for a short term but for a long term as well, for at least next 6 to 12 months. And a trader must have sound strategy. This is very important. You should have a good strategy and proper risk management to mitigate any volatility that is associated with the union budgets. Okay, so these are the few points that I would like to conclude with. If you guys have any questions, feel free to write to us at support@streak.tech. Very important thing, kindly note, Hindi webinar of the same topic, on the same topic, will be covering in couple of days on our official channel as well. So feel free to check that out as well. Thank you guys. Before I conclude, for any questions, please feel free to write to us at support@streak.tech. Please follow us on our Twitter handle at StreakTech. For more educational content on technicals and on trading in general, strategic trading in general, you can follow Zerodha's or Streak's official channel, both on YouTube and on Twitter. Thank you guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.